Imagine a neighborhood so forgotten by authorities and society that people were ashamed to call it home. Imagine a block where drugs were sold on every corner, where children played on broken streets amidst garbage, and the only dream was to escape at any cost. Imagine a small house on Plaza Joan 23 in the Spanish city of Mataró, where 10 people, adults, children, infants, crowded under one roof, and the refrigerator was rarely full of anything but yesterday's leftovers. No one could have imagined then that it was here, in this cursed Rocafonda neighborhood with the postal code 08304, that a boy would be born who, at 17, would become a European champion, win the Ballon d'Or ceremony, and be valued at 200 million euros, more than any footballer on the planet. Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Ebana is a story of how absolute poverty, cultural diversity, and an unyielding belief in a dream can transform an unknown child from the slums into the greatest football miracle of modern times. On July 13, 2007, in the small Catalan town of Esplugues de Llobregat, a suburb of Barcelona, a boy was born who was given an unusual compound name, Lamine Yamal. This name was not a random choice by his parents, as it might seem. The story goes that just before his birth, the family was in desperate financial straits, and two acquaintances, each named one of these names, helped the parents with money to prepare for the child's arrival. In gratitude for this help, which literally saved them from ruin, the father and mother decided to name their son after these two people. Thus, Lamine Yamal received the name that would resound in stadiums around the world. The boy's father, Mounir Nasraoui, was a simple painter from the Moroccan city of Larache, a port town in northwestern Morocco, from which thousands of young people fled to Europe in search of a better life. Mounir arrived in Spain with empty pockets and a huge dream to provide for his future family. Every day he got up before dawn, picked up a brush and a bucket of paint, and went to paint other people's houses, offices, building facades, any job that could bring in a little money. His hands were covered in calluses, his back ached from constant labor, but he never complained because he knew that in Morocco, an even harder fate awaited him. Lamine's mother, Sheila Ebana, was from Bada, the capital of Equatorial Guinea, a small African country lost on the Atlantic coast. Sheila worked as a waitress in fast food restaurants, spending 12 hours a day on her feet, serving customers with a smile on her face, despite her fatigue and longing for her homeland. These two, an immigrant from the Maghreb and a woman from Central Africa, met in Spain, fell in love, and decided to build a family in a country that promised them at least hope for a decent future. But life was not in a hurry to give them easy paths. The Nasraoui Ebana family settled in Mataró, a city with a population of about 130,000, located 30 kilometers northeast of Barcelona. But not in the prosperous center with its wide avenues and cozy cafes, but in the Rocafonda neighborhood, a block with the index 08304, which even locals preferred not to talk about aloud. Rocafonda was synonymous with poverty, crime, and social isolation. Immigrants from all over the world lived here: Moroccans, Senegalese, Pakistanis, Romanians, people who came to Europe for a dream, but got stuck in a ghetto where dreams died faster than children were born. On the streets of Rocafonda, you could hear a dozen languages, but almost never Catalan or Spanish. The authorities had forgotten about this area, the police appeared only by call, and local schools were overcrowded with children whose parents barely made ends meet. It was in this place, on Plaza Joan 23, that Lamine's family lived in a modest house. But this house was home not only to the boy, his parents, and younger siblings. 10 people lived under one roof. Lamine's paternal grandmother, Fatima Nasraoui, also lived with them. This woman was a true hero of the family, although the world would never have known her story if not for her grandson's football talent. In 1990, when Fatima was 40 years old, she alone left Morocco, leaving behind everything she knew, and boarded a ferry in Tangier, heading for the shores of Spain. She arrived completely alone, without a husband, without children, only with hope for a better future. Fatima found work at a campsite in the Catalan town of Llavaneres, where she scrubbed toilets, cleaned up after tourists, and washed other people's laundry. Later, she found work in a nursing home where she cared for frail elderly people, fed them, washed them, and listened to their stories. Year after year, Fatima saved money and gradually, one by one, she brought her children from Morocco to Spain, giving them a chance at a life they could not have dreamed of in their homeland. Her son, Mounir, was one of those who owed his mother everything he had. In this house, where besides Lamine, his parents, and grandmother, his uncle Abdul with his wife and 4 children also lived, there was an atmosphere difficult to describe in words. There was no personal space. Children slept on mattresses on the floor, adults huddled in tiny rooms. The kitchen was a place where meals were cooked for everyone, and every piece of bread was shared among hungry mouths. But despite the poverty, there was love. The Muslim faith united the family. 5 times a day, prayers were offered. On Fridays, everyone went to the mosque. During the month of Ramadan, even children fasted. This faith gave them the strength to endure humiliation, poverty, and the looks of contempt from those who lived in prosperous areas. But when Lamine was just 3 years old, something happened that could break the already fragile balance of the family. His parents divorced. Mounir and Sheila could not save their marriage. The reasons remained a secret, but the result was obvious. The mother, with little Lamine, moved to Granollers, a city in central Catalonia, where she found work in a fast food restaurant. The father remained in Mataró, continuing to work as a painter. The boy was torn between 2 cities, 2 parents, 2 worlds. But both, Mounir and Sheila, remained in their son's life, supporting him despite the divorce. This was a rare case where a broken family did not break the child's childhood, but instead doubled his support. And it was at this moment when little Lamine was tossed between Granollers and Mataró, between mother and father, between poverty and hope, that fate was preparing a meeting for him that would forever change not only his life, but also the destiny of an entire neighborhood, a district with the index Euro 8304, which would soon cease to be a symbol of shame and become a symbol of pride. In Granollers, where Sheila moved with 4-year-old Lamine, after the divorce, life began with a clean slate. The city, located in the heart of Catalonia, was not as poor as Rocafonda, but for a single immigrant mother, every day remained a struggle for survival. Sheila found work as a waitress at a McDonald's fast food restaurant. The work was exhausting, shifts lasted 10 to 12 hours, the smell of fried oil clung to her clothes and hair, but the salary allowed her to rent a modest room and feed her son. Every morning she walked little Lamine to kindergarten, kissed his curly hair and went to work, where she smiled at customers, took orders, cleaned tables, and her thoughts were always with the boy she was raising alone. It was at this job, amidst the smell of French fries and the ringing of cash registers, that fate brought Sheila together with a woman who would change her son's life forever. Sheila's colleague happened to be the daughter of Inocente Díez, whom everyone in Granollers football circles knew by the nickname Kubala, after the legendary Hungarian forward Ladislau Kubala, who once played for Barcelona. Inocente was the youth academy coordinator for a small local club, CF La Torreta, a modest football school with 200 young players, where boys from working-class families kicked a ball on old artificial turf, hoping one day to make it in big football. When Sheila told her colleague that her son loved football, played with a ball every free minute, but she didn't have money to enroll him in a sports school, the woman immediately called her father. "Bring the boy," Inocente said. "If he wants to play football, you don't have to worry about money." These words sounded like a blessing for a family that was barely making ends meet. In 2011, when Lamine was barely 4 years old, Sheila took him to his first training session at La Torreta. The club's football field was just 50 meters from the McDonald's where his mother worked, and this was incredibly lucky. After her shift, she could drop by, watch her son train, and make sure he was all right. On that first day, little Lamine went onto the field in an old, oversized t-shirt and shorts, with huge cheeks and a mop of curly black hair sticking out in all directions. Inocente Díez, who was observing a group of 40 children of roughly the same age, immediately noticed something unusual about this tiny boy. While other children were distracted, sat down to play with the artificial turf, picked at the grass with their fingers, ran crying to their parents, or simply wandered aimlessly around the field, Lamine never left the ball for a step. He was completely focused. His eyes glowed when he touched the ball, and it seemed as if the rest of the world had ceased to exist for him. Out of 40 children his age, Lamine was the only one who never left the field, Inocente later recalled. He just wanted to play, play, and play. I immediately realized that I had a special child in front of me. But little Lamine's life in those years was torn between two cities, two parents, two worlds. Despite the divorce, his father Mounir remained in his son's life, and the boy regularly returned to Mataro, to Rocafonda, where his grandmother Fatima, Uncle Abdul, and his family lived, where there were familiar streets, his native language, the smell of Moroccan cuisine, and the atmosphere of home, however poor. Mounir, who continued to work as a painter, did not have a car and often could not accompany his son to training in Granollers. At such times, he would call Inocente and ask him to pick up Lamine in his car. Mounir always asked me not to let the boy go alone, the La Torreta coordinator recounted. He was afraid for his son, and that was normal. On the way, we always talked, and I swore to him that this boy would one day be signed by Barcelona. I saw something in him that others didn't. At La Torreta, Lamine blossomed every day. The coaches didn't keep him with his peers. When they saw his potential, they moved him up two age groups where he played against boys who were 2 or 3 years older, taller, and stronger. But this didn't scare him. On the contrary, playing with older guys, he learned to think faster, see the field, and beat opponents not with strength but with technique and intelligence. His dribbling was fantastic for a 4 or 5-year-old child. He controlled the ball as if it were glued to his feet, eluded defenders with light feints, and shot at goal with incredible accuracy. Little Lamine's idols were the Barcelona stars he watched on TV at his grandmother's house. The magical Brazilian Ronaldinho with his smile and incredible tricks, the genius Lionel Messi, who seemed like an alien from another planet, and the daring Neymar, whose dribbles and goals made hearts beat faster. Lamine tried to imitate their movements in training, copied their gestures, dreamed of one day wearing the Blaugrana jersey of the greatest club in the world. The years at La Torreta were a time of innocent joy, when football was just a game, not a profession, when there was no pressure, contracts, or expectations of millions. But even in this small club, on a modest artificial turf field, which today proudly bears the name Campus Lamine Yamal, it was clear. This boy with huge cheeks and curly hair, who was born in poverty and lived between two cities, was destined for something greater. And soon, the most influential people in the world of football would know his name. The fame of the tiny prodigy from La Torreta spread across the football fields of Catalonia faster than one might expect. In 2014, when Lamine was only 7 years old, a man in dark glasses and a sports jacket with an emblem that any Catalan would recognize appeared at one of the training sessions of the modest club in Granollers. Isidre Gil, a legendary Barcelona scout, a student of the great Oriol Tort, founder of the greatest club's scouting system, stood on the edge of the field, closely observing the boys kicking the ball on the artificial turf. Gil was known for his meticulousness. He could watch hundreds of children's matches without finding anything interesting, writing short, sparse notes in his notebook. But that day, his pen froze over the paper when he saw a 7-year-old boy with huge cheeks and curly hair who dribbled past defenders as if they were training cones. Enjoys the game, passing expert, selfless. These 3 words Isidre Gil wrote in his report, a rare praise from a man who didn't hand out compliments right and left. He saw in Lamine what he had been looking for his entire career, an innate ability to anticipate the game's development, find pockets of space where none existed, and make the right decisions in a split second. This was not just a talented child. This was a footballer born to play in the Barcelona style. The next day, Gil sent an urgent report to the youth system coordinator, Oscar Hernandez. Hernandez, reading the scout's notes, understood. There was no time to delay. He immediately sent an email to the futsal coordinator, Marc Serra, and also informed the academy director, Albert Puig. In the email, Hernandez emphasized, "It is urgent to organize a trial match and sign a contract with the boy born in 2007. The problem was that at that moment, Lamine's family was on a trip to his parents' homelands, Morocco and Equatorial Guinea, visiting relatives. Meanwhile, CF La Torreta was negotiating a partnership agreement with Espanyol, Barcelona's main rival in Catalonia, and if that agreement were signed, Lamine's move to the Blaugrana Academy would become almost impossible. When the family returned from Africa, Sheila received a call that changed everything. Barcelona representatives invited Lamine for a trial training session at La Masia, the legendary academy that produced Xavi, Iniesta, Pep Guardiola, Carlos Puyol, and of course, Lionel Messi himself. For a boy from Rocafonda, it sounded like a fairy tale. For a mother who worked as a waitress at McDonald's, it was a miracle. For his father Mounir, who painted other people's walls for pennies, it was proof that Allah had heard their prayers. The trial training went brilliantly. Lamine showed everything he was capable of, and the academy's technical staff unanimously voted to sign a contract. The document that sealed the 7-year-old prodigy's move to Barcelona is now kept in the club's archives as a priceless relic, as significant as the napkin on which Carlos Rexach signed a contract with a 13-year-old Argentine named Lionel Messi in 2000. Incredibly, fate connected Lamine and Messi long before the boy embarked on the path of professional football. In 2008, when Lamine was just a few months old, the Catalan newspaper Sport organized a charity photo shoot with Barcelona players and babies from local families for a UNICEF campaign. Sheila brought her tiny son, and in one of the photographs, 20-year-old Lionel Messi holds baby Lamine in his arms, bathing him in a plastic basin, smiling at the camera. No one could have imagined then that 15 years later, this infant would become Messi's heir at Barcelona, wear the same number 10 jersey, and replicate his dribbles on the same Camp Nou pitches. The move to La Masia marked the beginning of a new life for the entire family. Lamine entered the Temple of Football, an academy founded in 1979 by President Josep Luis Núñez and built on the philosophy laid down by the great Johan Cruyff. The Dutch genius insisted that all children in the academy train using a 3-4-3 formation, playing the same style as the first team: ball control, short passes, pressing, constant movement, technique over physical strength. No deviations, no compromises. La Masia scouts looked not for the tallest or fastest children. They looked for creative players who knew how to win space and time through intelligent ball control, who possessed quick reactions and a refined sense of the game. Lamine perfectly fit these criteria, and from day one at the academy it was clear. He was not just a talent, he was the future. The years at La Masia were both a blessing and a test for young Lamine. The Barcelona Academy was famous not only for its playing philosophy but also for its fierce competition. Every year, hundreds of talented boys from all over Spain and the world dreamed of breaking into the first team, but only a few reached the goal. The statistics were merciless. Out of every 100 children who entered La Masia, a maximum of 3 or 4 became professional footballers, and only a handful of chosen ones made it to Barcelona's main squad. But Lamine stood out from the very beginning not only for his technique but also for his incredible maturity for his age. He moved through the academy's youth categories with dizzying speed, rarely seen even within the walls of the legendary training center. Children usually spent 2 to 3 years in each age group, slowly progressing, adapting to new demands. Lamine, however, skipped levels, constantly playing against guys 2 or 3 years older than himself. At 10, he trained with 12-year-olds, at 13, with 15-year-olds. The difference in physical development was obvious. Opponents towered over him, were stronger, faster, more experienced. But Lamine compensated with intelligence, technique, and an incredible vision of the field. His dribbling was hypnotic. He controlled the ball as if it were sewn to his feet with an invisible thread, eluded defenders with elegant feints, and shot at goal from any distance with deadly accuracy. La Masia coaches noted that the boy possessed a rare quality, the ability to read the game several moves ahead, like a chess grandmaster. "I remember him as a boy who was very aware of his talent," Ivan Carrasco, one of the academy coaches, later recounted. In sports, talented people tend to be very selfish but not Yamal. He always played for the team, always made a pass when a teammate was in a better position, always the first to congratulate his teammates on goals. This modesty and team spirit made Lamine a favorite not only of the coaches but also of his classmates at the academy, despite the fact that he was younger than everyone and was already attracting the attention of scouts from Europe's biggest clubs. But football was not the only priority in the teenager's life. The Nasraoui Ebana family always insisted that Lamine not forget about education. Sheila, his mother, strictly monitored her son's academic performance, and the boy attended online classes for the ESO program, compulsory secondary education for children aged 12 to 16. Balancing morning and evening training sessions, weekend matches, tournament trips, and homework was incredibly difficult, but Lamine managed. He took textbooks and notebooks with him on team buses, did homework in hotel rooms before important games, and took exams between training sessions. My parents couldn't afford to send me to a football academy at an early age, Lamine later admitted. But when Barcelona gave me a chance, I understood that I had to prove myself. I was worthy of it, not only on the field, but also in life. His family remained his support during these years. His mother, Sheila, a modest and hardworking woman, continued to work to provide for her children. Lamine had younger siblings. In 2022, Kane was born, an adorable boy with huge eyes who adored his older brother from his first days. His younger sister, Bara, also grew up in an atmosphere of love and support. His grandmother, Fatima, still living in Rocafonda, remained the spiritual core of the family. She prayed for her grandson every day, fasted during Ramadan, asked Allah to protect the boy from injuries and evil. His father, Mounir, despite the divorce from his mother, regularly came to his son's matches, stood in the stands, shouting with joy after every goal. And Lamine never forgot where he came from. After every goal he scored, he raised his hands and formed his fingers into a gesture depicting the numbers 304, the postal code of Rocafonda, the neighborhood that gave him life. This gesture became his trademark, a symbol that poverty is not a sentence but fuel for greatness. By the spring of 2023, 15-year-old Lamine had already attracted the attention of the entire football world. Barcelona's first-team coach, Xavi Hernandez, a club legend who himself came through La Masia and knew the value of talent, regularly attended youth team training sessions, watching the teenager with unbelievable technique. Catalan newspapers were already writing about the new Messi, although Lamine had not yet scored a single goal for the first team and had not even played a minute in it. But Xavi saw what he knew for sure. This boy was ready. And on April 29, 2023, in a La Liga matchday, 32 fixture against Real Betis at the home stadium Camp Nou, history was written. At the 83rd minute and 48th second of the match, Xavi signaled the referee, a substitution. A murmur of surprise rippled through the stands. A thin teenager with a childlike face, barely 15 years, 9 months, and 16 days old, was coming onto the field. Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Ebana was becoming the youngest player in Barcelona's history since La Liga's founding 90 years ago, in 1929. This record, previously held by Vicente Martinez, who debuted at 16 years and 105 days in distant 1941, was broken by a boy from Rocafonda, whose family a few years ago could not afford to enroll him in a football school. His entire family was in the stands that evening. His mother, Sheila, cried with happiness, covering her face with her hands, unable to believe that her son, the same little boy she once led by the hand to training at La Torreta, was now stepping onto the sacred turf of Camp Nou in a number 38 jersey. His father, Mounir, stood, shouting, waving his arms, his voice cracking with emotion. His grandmother, Fatima, an 80-year-old woman who nearly 30 years ago had crossed the sea alone from Morocco on a ferry, was also there. She prayed, whispered surahs from the Quran, thanked Allah for this moment. And in Rocafonda, in the 08304 district, where a crowd of residents had gathered in front of a large screen set up in Uncle Abdul's bar, people hugged and cried. For the first time in the history of their forgotten neighborhood, one of their own had stepped onto the field of the greatest club in the world. The match ended with a 4-0 victory for Barcelona, but the result was not important. What was important was that a boy from the slums had proven that dreams come true if you are willing to work for them every day. The next morning, artist Antonio Moreno began painting a huge mural on the wall of the bakery owned by Uncle Abdul in the heart of Rocafonda. The drawing depicted Lamine in a Barcelona jersey with 3 flags, Spain, Morocco, and Equatorial Guinea, flying above his head, symbolizing his multicultural roots. The inscription read, 304, Our Pride. This image became a place of pilgrimage for local residents and tourists from all over the world. But the debut was just the beginning. On October 8, 2023, in a home match against Granada, Lamine scored his first goal for Barcelona at the age of 16 years and 87 days, becoming the youngest goalscorer in La Liga history. Comparisons to Messi no longer seemed exaggerated. They became a reality acknowledged even by the most skeptical experts. Successes at Barcelona did not go unnoticed by the selectors of the Spanish national team. Luis de la Fuente, the head coach of La Roja, closely followed the young winger's progress and understood that he was not just a talented teenager, but a player capable of changing the face of Spanish football for decades to come. On September 8, 2023, in a European Championship qualifier against Georgia, 16-year-old Lamine came onto the field in the red jersey of the Spanish national team, becoming the youngest player in the history of the national team. He was only 16 years and 57 days old, but Yamal not only debuted, he scored a goal, inscribing his name in the record books in golden letters as the youngest goalscorer in the history of the Spanish national team, a country that gave the world Raúl, David Villa, Fernando Torres, and dozens of other great forwards. The 2023-24 season became a period of incredible growth for Lamine. He played 48 matches for Barcelona in all competitions, scored 6 goals, provided 7 assists, and set a series of records. He became the youngest assist provider in La Liga in the 21st century, the youngest starting player in a Champions League match, and the youngest player to score a goal in the playoffs of Europe's Premier Club competition. Every appearance on the field was accompanied by a new entry in the record books, but ahead lay a challenge that would surpass everything he had experienced up to that point. In the spring of 2024, Luis de la Fuente announced the Spain squad for the European Championship in Germany, and Lamine Yamal's name was on the list. Experts doubted, could a 16-year-old teenager withstand the pressure of a tournament of this level? Could a boy who just a year ago was finishing online high school lessons between training sessions play against hardened defenders from France, Germany, England? De la Fuente did not hesitate for a second. "I believe in this boy more than in some experienced players," the coach told reporters. "He fears nothing and no one." Before leaving for Germany, Lamine gave an interview in which he admitted that he had taken his textbooks and laptop for homework. He was still in his final year of ESO and had to pass his final exams after the tournament. This detail astonished the entire football world. A Spanish national team player at the European Championship was doing his math and literature homework between training sessions. On July 13th, the day before the final, Lamine turned 17, his birthday in Germany, in the national team hotel, without his family, surrounded by his teammates who congratulated him with cake and songs. The group stage began with a sensation. In the match against Croatia, Lamine started and provided an assist, becoming the youngest assist provider in European Championship history. But the real magic happened on July 9th in the semi-final against France at Munich's Allianz Arena. In the 41st minute of the match, Lamine received the ball 25 meters from the goal, made a slight feint to the left, and struck with his right foot. The ball flew in a perfect arc into the top far corner, past the paralyzed goalkeeper. The goal was so beautiful that even French fans rose from their seats in respect. 16 years, 11 months, and 26 days. The youngest goalscorer in European Championship history, breaking the record of Johan van Lanthen, which had stood since 2004. On July 14, 2024, exactly one day after his 17th birthday, Lamine Yamal stepped onto the field of the Olympic Stadium in Berlin for the biggest match of his young life, the European Championship final against the England national team. 17 years. And one day, no one in the history of European Championships had ever played in the decisive match of the tournament at such a young age. The stands roared. 70,000 fans chanted anthems, and the boy from Rocafonda stood in the center circle, hand on his heart, listening to the Spanish national anthem. Beside him were world football stars, Rodri, Morata, Carvajal, but it was on Lamine that the eyes of millions of TV viewers around the world were fixed. The match was tense, tough, nervous. The English opened the scoring in the 2nd minute, but Spain equalized, and then, in the 76th minute, took the lead thanks to a goal from Mikel Oyarzabal. Lamine played on the right flank, exhausting the English defenders with his dribbling, delivering accurate passes, and creating dangerous opportunities. When the final whistle blew, confirming Spain's 2-1 victory, the boy collapsed onto the turf and covered his face with his hands, tears of joy mixed with relief and incredible pride. Spain became European champions for the 4th time in its history, and Lamine Yamal became the youngest player to win this trophy. At the end of the tournament, He was named the Young Player of the Tournament, a well-deserved award for 7 matches in which he scored 1 goal and provided 4 assists. The return to Spain was triumphant. The national team flew to Madrid, where they were met by tens of thousands of fans in the streets. King Felipe VI personally congratulated the champions, and Lamine's name was heard from every corner of the country. But the most touching moment awaited him at home in Rocafonda. When Lamine arrived in the AO 8304 district, the entire neighborhood came out into the streets. Thousands of people, many of whom had known him since childhood, cried with happiness, hugged him, chanted his name. The mural on the wall of Uncle Abdul's former bakery became a place of pilgrimage. People came to take photos, lay flowers, write messages of gratitude. Grandmother Fatima, sitting at home, received congratulations from neighbors and repeated the same thing. Allah heard our prayers. Lamine's life changed forever. His market value soared to over 100 million euros, a fantastic figure for a 17-year-old footballer. The world's biggest brands lined up for his signature. Contracts with Nike, Pepsi, and PlayStation transformed the boy from a poor family into a multimillionaire. But Lamine did not forget his roots. The first thing he did after the tournament was buy a new house for his grandmother Fatima in Rocafonda, with a patio and garden where she could sit and enjoy the sunset. But most importantly, he did not abandon the AO 8304 district. He did not betray the place that gave him strength. The triumph at Euro 2024 was supposed to mark the beginning of a serene era of glory. But fate had prepared a trial for 17-year-old Lamine that could break anyone. On August 14, 2024, just a month after the final in Berlin, his father Mounir Nasraoui was brutally beaten and stabbed 3 times in a parking lot in the Rocafonda neighborhood. The incident occurred after a trivial quarrel with neighbors over a bucket of water thrown from a 3rd-story window. The conflict escalated into a mass brawl, and 4 men with no criminal record attacked Mounir with knives, striking him in the chest and side. Witnesses later told the police they wanted to kill him. Lamine's father was hospitalized in serious condition, but 3 days later doctors discharged him home. Mounir published a post on Instagram. "Feeling better, thank you all for your support." The 4 attackers were arrested, but the emotional blow to Lamine was colossal. The day after the incident, the 17-year-old footballer returned to Barcelona training. He did not let the tragedy stop him. The new coach Hansi Flick, the German specialist who replaced Xavi as the Catalans' head coach, immediately saw in Lamine not just talent, but a leader capable of pulling the team through the toughest moments. Flick changed Barcelona's tactics, giving Yamal more freedom on the right flank, and the results were not long in coming. The 2024-25 season was a triumphant one for the club and a personal breakthrough for Lamine. 54 matches in all competitions, 18 goals, and 25 assists, statistics that experienced forwards would envy. 7 of his goals were scored from long range, making him Barcelona's leader in this category. Barcelona, under Flick's leadership, won a domestic treble, the La Liga Championship, the Copa del Rey, and the Spanish Super Cup. Lamine's decisive goal against Espanyol brought the team the league title, and his assist in the Champions League semi-final helped the club reach the decisive stages of Europe's premier club tournament. With the Spanish national team, he reached the Nations League final, continuing to break records one after another. But experts voiced concerns. Some analysts warned that the influence of his father and the Rocafonda environment could negatively impact the young footballer's career. The stabbing incident raised questions about the safety of the family and the environment in which Lamine grew up. Nevertheless, in July 2025, exactly on his 18th birthday, Lamine signed a new contract with Barcelona until 2031. The terms of the agreement were astounding. A base salary of 20 million euros per year, plus a signing bonus of 25 million euros, to be paid in installments over 6 seasons. This made him the 3rd highest-paid player on the team after Frenkie de Jong and Robert Lewandowski. But most symbolically, he received the legendary number 10 jersey, previously worn by Diego Maradona, Ronaldinho, and Lionel Messi. At the contract signing ceremony, Lamine insisted that his entire family be present, especially his grandmother Fatima, without whom this moment would be meaningless. "Messi went his way, I will go mine," he told reporters, holding the number 10 jersey. Signing the contract until 2031 transformed Lamine not just into a footballer, but into a global icon of style, influence, and youth culture. The 18-year-old from Rocafonda became the third highest-paid player at Barcelona, after Frankie de Jong and Robert Lewandowski. His face graced the covers of international magazines, and advertising contracts with Nike, Pepsi, and PlayStation brought in millions of euros annually. But along with fame came trials that nearly destroyed his impeccable reputation. On July 13, 2025, Lamine celebrated his 18th birthday with a grand party in Barcelona, to which football stars, musicians, and friends from Rocafonda were invited. But the celebration, which was supposed to be fabulous, turned into a public scandal. People with dwarfism were hired to entertain guests at the event, which caused a wave of indignation in Spanish society. The Spanish Ministry of Social Rights demanded that the prosecutor's office investigate the incident, accusing the organizers of humiliating people with disabilities. Lamine publicly apologized, stating that he did not participate in the organization and was unaware of such plans, but the unpleasant impression remained. This was the first serious blow to his image as a humble boy from a poor neighborhood, but his personal life caused even more noise. On August 25, 2025, on the birthday of Argentine singer Nicki Nicole, Lamine published a romantic post on Instagram, confirming his relationship with the 25-year-old Latin music star. Nicki Nicole, whose real name is Nicole Denise Cuchillo Rodriguez, was a rising star of rap and reggaeton with 8 Latin Grammy nominations, whose songs garnered hundreds of millions of streams. They met at Lamine's birthday celebration in July, and a romance blossomed between the 18-year-old footballer and the 25-year-old artist, which instantly became a sensation in the press. On August 10th, Nicki attended Barcelona's friendly match against Italian club Como, sat in the stands wearing a branded number 10 jersey, and kissed Lamine after the match under flashing cameras. But the fairy tale lasted only 13 days. In early September 2025, the couple deleted all joint photos from social media, and Spanish tabloids reported a breakup. The reason, according to rumors, was a conflict over Nicki allegedly flirting with 17-year-old Argentine footballer Franco Mastantuono from River Plate, Lamine's direct rival in the fight for the title of the world's best young player. Lamine did not comment publicly on the situation, but friends said he was deeply hurt by the betrayal. The only consolation was his football achievements. On September 22, 2024, at the Ballon d'Or ceremony in Paris, 17-year-old Lamine received the Copa Trophy, the award for the best young footballer on the planet, beating Frenchman Désiré Doué and other contenders. He was also nominated for the Ballon d'Or itself, finishing 8th in the voting, an incredible achievement for a teenager. Exactly 1 year later, on September 22, 2025, Lamine made history by becoming the first player to win the Copa Trophy twice in a row and finished second in the Ballon d'Or race at 18. His market value soared to 200 million euros, making him the most expensive footballer on the planet. October 2025. 18-year-old Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Ebana stands at the pinnacle of the football world, yet firmly holds on to the roots that gave him life. Every Sunday, after Barcelona matches, he returns not to a luxurious villa in the prestigious Pedralbes district, but to Rocafonda, to the house he bought for his grandmother Fatima. The 85-year-old woman who 35 years ago crossed the Mediterranean Sea alone on a ferry from Tangier now lives in a cozy house with a patio where the whole family gathers every evening. His mother Sheila cooks traditional Equatorial Guinean dishes. His father Mounir, who has fully recovered from the stabbing, helps with household chores, and 3-year-old Cain and little Bara run around the garden playing with a football given to them by their older brother. It is here, at the family table, where all family members sit in their traditional places, that Lamine feels like himself. Not a superstar with a 200 million euro valuation, not the winner of 2 consecutive Copa trophies, not the second in the Ballon d'Or voting, but simply an older brother, a son, a grandson. Little Cain adores him so much that he cries when Lamine leaves for away matches. Viral videos of their hugs after Barcelona's victories garner tens of millions of views on social media. The world can't get enough of the bond between the 18-year-old star and the 3-year-old who sees his older brother as a hero. Kane wants to be like me, Lamine admits in an interview. But I tell him, you will be better. You will have what I didn't have as a child. Stability, support, opportunities. You won't be tossed between two cities. You won't feel poverty. But never forget where we came from. Lamine's influence on the youth of Rocafonda and the entire world cannot be overstated. The 08304 district, which just 5 years ago was a symbol of shame, poverty, and crime, has now become a place of pride. Before, people were ashamed to say they were from here, says one local resident. Now, even those who aren't from Rocafonda say, I'm from 304. Lamine changed everything. The mural on the wall of Uncle Abdul's former bakery, which he sold 3 months ago, remains untouched. It is a sacred place for the neighborhood, where tourists from all over the world come to take photos against the backdrop of the image of the boy with 3 flags above his head. Children from Morocco, Senegal, Equatorial Guinea, Pakistan, everyone living in the forgotten neighborhoods of European cities now dreams of following Lamine's path. He proved that skin color, accent, poverty, origin, these are not a sentence but fuel for greatness if you have a dream and are willing to work for it every day. The 2025-26 season, which has just begun, promises to be even more spectacular. Under Hansi Flick, Barcelona is contending for all possible trophies: La Liga, Copa del Rey, Champions League. Lamine, who now wears Messi's legendary number 10, is the undisputed leader of the Catalans' attack. His statistics impress even the most demanding critics. 17 records in a Barcelona jersey, countless achievements for the Spanish national team, the title of the most expensive player on the planet. But most importantly, he remained the humble boy whom La Torreta coordinator Inocente Díez once picked up from training in his car because his father had no transport. I remember him as a child who was never distracted on the field, Inocente recalls. Now he's a superstar, but nothing has changed. He's still the boy who loves football more than anything in the world. Muslim faith remains a source of strength for Lamine. Every day he performs 5 prayers, fasts during Ramadan, despite the intense schedule of matches and training. His grandmother Fatima taught him that Allah gives trials to those he loves, and every blow of fate, be it his parents' divorce, poverty, his father's stabbing, or public scandals, is a lesson that makes him stronger. After every goal scored, Lamine raises his hands to the sky and forms his fingers into the 304 gesture, not only a tribute to his home district, but also a reminder to himself of where he came from and where he never wants to return. Lamine's relationship with fans is special. He never refuses children autographs, always finds time for photos after training, and donates money to charity in Rocafonda and other poor areas of Barcelona. He understands that for millions of children from slums around the world, he is the only hope, living proof that dreams come true. I will not forget who I was, he says in an interview. I was that boy whose parents couldn't afford to enroll me in a football school. I was that child who lived in a neighborhood where no one believed in the future. If I forget that, I will lose what makes me me. Lamine's future goals are impossibly ambitious. He has publicly stated that he dreams not of one Ballon d'Or, but of several, more than Messi and Ronaldo won. If I don't achieve this, then my own mistakes or lack of ambition will be to blame, he said in a podcast. The 2026 World Cup in the USA, Canada, and Mexico is his main goal for the near future. Spain, with Lamine in the squad, is one of the tournament favorites, and the whole world wants to see if the 19-year-old Prodigy can repeat Pelé's feat, who won his first World Cup at 17. The first Champions League trophy with Barcelona, new records, new achievements. All this awaits Lamine on his path. The story of Lamine Yamal Nasraoui Ebana is not just a football biography. It is a modern fairy tale about how absolute poverty, cultural diversity, family love, and an unwavering belief in a dream can transform a boy from a forgotten neighborhood into a symbol of hope for an entire generation. From a house on Plaza Joan 23, where 10 people crowded under one roof, to Camp Nou, where 100,000 fans chant his name. From a mother who worked as a waitress at McDonald's to a €20 million a year contract. From a grandmother who single-handedly crossed the sea in search of a better life to a grandson who became the most expensive footballer on the planet. This is a story that postal codes do not determine destiny. that poverty is not a sentence, and that origin is not a limitation. But the main question remains open. Can the 18-year-old withstand the pressure of expectations placed on his fragile shoulders? Can he avoid the traps of fame, money, and environment that have ruined so many talents before him? Will he become the greatest footballer in history, as he dreams? Or will he remain another bright star that faded too soon? Time will tell. But one thing is undeniable. Lamine Yamal has already proven that dreams come true if you are willing to work for them every day. If you remember where you came from, and if there is a fire burning in your heart that cannot be extinguished by poverty, betrayal, or blows of fate. And as long as that fire burns, the world will watch his every step on the path to immortality with bated breath.